Hey, this is Joe Crump. Welcome back. I've got another question for you. This one is from Javier Pelanco. He says, Joe, can you give some basic definitions for some of the strategies you implement? How could I explain the difference between a land contract versus a subject to versus a lease option, etc.? Thanks, Javier. Okay, let me talk about, and I'm going to try to make this quick because we spend 2.5, 3 hours on this at the buying event, because this is the core information of what I teach. This is the most important part that you need to understand: structuring zero-down deals. And that's what this is really all about. And if you understand what the hierarchy of these structures is, it'll make it easier for you to look at a particular deal and say, yes, that deal needs to be structured in this way in order to make it work. Because ultimately what we're looking for is a way to solve the problem of the seller. All seller financing deals, all these kind of investment deals are about solving the problem for the seller. And when you solve that problem for them, then they want to do the deal. But it's got to be solved in a way that makes you money, that makes a profit for you. So rather than talking about how we're going to make a profit on these, I'm going to talk about how we're going to structure the deals, the different structures that are available, and the hierarchy that they should be in. And I'm going to try to do this in the next 2 to 3 minutes. I don't know if it's possible. Okay, first of all, subject to. This is the top of the hierarchy, and the way you buy the property subject to is the seller that has an existing mortgage on the property deeds the property to you. The loan stays in the name of that seller. You're not assuming the loan. You're not qualifying for the loan. You're not ever even talking to the lender. All you're going to do is start making the payments on it. But the deed is in your name because they deeded it to you. You're going to take a warranty deed. And this makes you in full control of that property. Now, it's still subject to the existing loan, so those payments have to be made. And it's possible that if you default on that, the lender is going to take the property back. Now, there's some other issues in this. I'm not going to get into it because we don't have much time. Due on sale clauses, things like that, which need to be addressed, but it's not difficult. And we do these types of deals all the time. This is the top of the hierarchy. This is the way that you want to buy properties. The next type is multi-mortgage. This is if a seller has equity. They've got a first mortgage, but let's say they've got a first mortgage of $100,000, but the property is worth $200,000. They're willing to sell it for $180,000, but they don't want to take an $80,000 loss. So what you do is take over the first mortgage subject to the existing loan, the $100,000, and then you give them their equity as a second. So they deed the property to you, and then you borrow that other $80,000 from them in the form of a note. So you owe them $80,000 to be paid out over a period of time at a certain interest rate. Obviously, you want the longer period of time. You want a lower interest rate, typically a 5-year period with a 6% interest rate, interest-only payments. And that's the way you would set up a multi-mortgage. And that gets them their equity out. The other option they've got is they could go refinance the property, pull their equity out that way, and then just sell it to you subject to. So that's the second tier in the hierarchy. The third one is land contract, also known as contract for deed if you're in a trust deed state. If you're in a mortgage state, it's land contract. If you're in a trust deed state, it's contract for deed. This is called purchase money. And what it is, the seller stays on the deed. You don't get the deed. And so your position isn't as strong. But you still get ownership because you're going to be able to record this land contract. And the land contract is a document simply laying out the terms of your purchase, what the interest rate is, what the payment amount is, what the term of the loan is, what the purchase price is. All those things are laid out on this document. This document is then recorded at the county recorder, and it secures your position in this property. It's a good way to buy property. I prefer subject to. I think it's lower in the hierarchy than subject to. The next one is lease option. You buy a property lease option, lease with an option to buy. So you're leasing a property, paying a monthly lease fee, and then you have an option to buy at a specific price for a certain period of time. So if it's a 1-year lease option, you have 1 year to exercise that lease or exercise that option at that specific price. After that, the option expires, and if you don't buy that property within that period of time, then you lose your option. Then it's just the terms of the lease that have to be fulfilled. So that's the least secure way to buy property. Now, if you're selling property, the hierarchy is reversed. You want to sell lease option first because that gives your buyer less security and makes you in a stronger position. You always want to keep the strongest position because you're going to be the one that's going to be the most responsible in this process. And the other person, if they default, you're not going to be hurt as bad. So hopefully that answers the question.